The prawning season was postponed for a month because test trawls revealed prawns were too small and too few to sustain the concentrated efforts of the river's fleet of 30 boats. But with the extra time to grow and recent rains that have helped flush them downstream, prawns will be facing open season from Wednesday. The Fisheries Department works closely with licensed fishermen to declare the start of the season, and all indications point to this being a good one. The Newcastle Fishermen's Co-op is putting on extra trucks to ferry the expected hauls straight from the boats to its shop. Retail prices are likely to be around $18 or $19 a kilo, and Hunter River prawns are expected to be in good supply for Christmas.
Conceived by the Ryan government in the mid-1980s, the Tangara has been one of Australia's largest ever railway construction ventures. The train has ushered in a new era in safety and comfort for rail commuters. It's also been a winner for Newcastle's Gannon Company. The engineering firm has completed the $857 million 450-carriage contract ahead of time. The Minister assisting the Premier on Hunter Development, Richard Face, today flagging the final Tangara into service.
This train was built from the rails up. It was only a concept, and they did all of the engineering and all of the actual putting together of the train, so it wasn't like as if they were just given a specification. And the workers at Ganninan's can be very, very proud of it.
Ganninan's is on a roll at the moment with a State Rail suburban train refurbishment project and a National Rail locomotive contract to keep it more than busy. It won those jobs on the strength of its performance with the Tangara, a project which has helped to wave the flag for manufacturing in the Hunter.
This program here today is still 6 months ahead of schedule, so I think that speaks for itself. In terms of the ability of the people on the Hunter, all of our engineering work is still centred here in the Hunter, will remain so, and it reflects the ability of the people.
Meanwhile, the company remains on the lookout for even more work, pursuing new locomotive, train and tram building contracts across Australia and overseas. Ian Cameron, NBN News.
It's been a hellish week for emergency crews on the Central Coast. Since Monday, 6 people have died in car crashes.
We put a lot of effort into trying to prevent this sort of thing happening, and when they happen, it just disappoints us.
On Saturday night, 3 men aged in their 50s and 60s died instantly when their car crossed to the wrong side of the road and collided with a tow truck at Carryong. It was the worst of 4 separate crashes. The first on Monday claimed the life of a 19-year-old man. His car slammed into a tree at Kangiyangi. 2 days later, a 36-year-old man died when his utility was hit by a 4-wheel drive on the F3 freeway at Arimba. And on Thursday, a 30-year-old woman from Shelley Beach was killed when her car collided with another vehicle on Foresters Road near Terrigal. Police are still carrying out investigations into all crashes. They say there is no pattern or obvious reason for the sudden increase in serious crashes, which has seen the coast road toll jump alarmingly.
We don't know about any alcohol relation into any of the accidents. We'll have to wait for blood tests to come back with regard to that. The one on Saturday night could be attributed to the wet conditions of the roadway at the time, but other than that, we just don't know.
Miss Kim and Big Dog were immediately the centre of attention during the Upper Hunter's first Burger Fest. After the skydivers plummeted to the ground, children had plenty of activities to keep themselves busy. It was all aimed at acknowledging just how important the young are to our community. The Burger Fest marked the end of a nationwide celebration of Children's Week. This year's theme is Build a Better World for Everyone. Proceeds from the event will go to the Hunter's Children Oncology Unit. Heather Stewart, NBN News. Weighed down making the final changes to his PhD thesis, 27-year-old Richard Bates of Newcastle has had little time to celebrate his postdoctoral C.J. Martin Fellowship, awarded by the National Health and Medical Research Council. Still in shock over the announcement, he's only just coming to terms with the expectations it brings.
It's kind of intimidating, kind of scary, but it is nice recognition, and I guess there's pressure on now to perform, but I've got this far, and I'll take the opportunity.
Early next year, he will begin a 2-year study at Harvard University in the US, and then return to share his newfound knowledge with others at the University of Newcastle. It's for this reason his win is not just a personal achievement, as other local medical students will also benefit.
I hope to be successful in the next couple of years overseas, and then to return and establish myself here in Newcastle. This is not a bad place, and bring some international recognition to the work that goes on here.
And in the long term, perhaps cancer patients will gain, as his time in overseas laboratories will be devoted to conducting research into tumour suppressor genes. He hopes the results will lead to a series of breakthroughs in the treatment of many cancers. Heather Stewart, NBN News. Age is no barrier to learn reading and writing skills, and these students are living proof. Mother of two Vicky Muldoon of the Lake Macquarie suburb of Windale struggled with English as a second language until she sought help from the Hunter Institute of Technology. Now she proudly lists a series of skills many of us take for granted, including writing notes to teachers, using a phone book and reading a bus timetable.
I can do the things what I couldn't do before I can do now, and I'm very proud of that.
Each student attending the free course works at their own pace to an individually designed program, focusing either on basic maths or literacy skills. Heather Stewart, NBN News.
We have two great basketballers here, guys. Marty McLean and Craig Adams. Go!
There you guys going? Oh, what happened to you? 20. Got our winners right here.
Captain Jeffries was killed in action on the 12th of October 1917, 78 years ago. He was only 22 years old. Known as the War for Civilization, or the Great War to End All Wars. Mr Jeffrey's final resting place is many, many thousands of kilometres away. A place called Passchendaele in Belgium.
The two libraries on the university's Callaghan campus are a legacy of the amalgamation of higher education facilities. Although the university and the College of Advanced Education were combined, the Huxley Library and the Auchmuty Library remain as separate entities. But according to students, that's set to change. Today they began a campaign of protest action to stop the closure of the smaller Huxley Library.
There is definitely not enough space for students as it is. There is not enough equipment, there is not enough books.
There isn't enough study area space in this library to accommodate the students that are even there at the moment without bringing the students from the other side here to be able to study.
But Assistant Vice-Chancellor Professor Keith Lester says the decision on the library's future hasn't been made. He says an independent review, though, has recommended that it may be financially and educationally beneficial to combine the libraries. If the Auchmuty Library does become the main facility, he admits the building will have to be expanded, and the cost of that might make the proposal impractical.
"16-month-old Tamara Bryant was tucking into a snack of caramel custard late yesterday when her mother noticed something odd on the teaspoon. On closer examination, she was shocked at what she discovered.
Just about to put a spoonful in her mouth and I saw a shiny thing on the spoon. I looked and I felt it with my finger and it was very sharp, and then I looked at the bottom and it had all sharp tin things in the bottom of the jar.
The family spent an anxious night monitoring the baby. They're still not convinced she hasn't swallowed some of the metal. When grandfather Peter Bryant heard the story, he didn't believe it. Now he wants to get to the bottom of the mystery.
I was very shocked to find out that the sharp bits of metal was in the bottom of the tin, and so when I got home and I checked it out myself. And then I quickly got on the phone to Heinz and told him that what was discovered on the bottom of the tin of the baby food, could you get someone out to have a look at it?
A Heinz spokesperson says the tin and its remaining contents have been sent to Victoria for analysis. The company believes the find is a one-off incident and assured mothers rigid quality standards were maintained to ensure no extraneous material entered products. At this stage, the product has not been recalled. Heather Stewart, NBN News. It's taken 6 long years, but finally the vital link for Gosford residents has become a reality. A few more finishing touches and the bridge will be ready for traffic, all at a cost of $20 million of taxpayers' money. 45,000 vehicles travel the route between Gosford and the rapidly expanding nearby communities and the F3 freeway. Destined to become a local landmark, the flyover has been specifically designed to minimise both the aesthetic and environmental impact on the adjacent Brisbane waters. Roads and Public Works Minister Michael Knight is expected to officially open the new works on December 10. Heather Stewart, NBN News.
The amazing concept of building separate parts of a ship in different places, then bolting them all together to form a sleek fighting machine continues.
Well, we're very confident. At the end of the job we survey the final modules, and we're confident they meet design requirements, and we also do a lot of survey during the build, and we know that each part is then dimensionally correct and will go together correctly.
2 forward sections comprising the gun deck and accommodation area of Anzac Frigate No. 3 will soon be rolled off Transfield's Kooragang Island Yard and onto a barge to Williamstown in Melbourne, where the ship will be completed. The barge is on its way from New Zealand, where it loaded other parts of the same ship. The technique of building modules is proving successful for the 10-ship contract. HMAS Newcastle, which visited its namesake port last week, is a good example of the finished product. Andrew Lobb, NBN News. Despite being subjected to back-to-back droughts and occasional algae outbreaks over the last couple of years, the Williams River, Newcastle's main drinking water supply, is in good shape. So good, it'll be the benchmark other rivers and their communities will have to measure up to during the inquiry.
That's a bit of a tribute, I think, to the management effort that's been put into the Williams by a whole range of players in the region. There's been a lot of good work done by the Catchment Management Trust and the local farming community up there, and Hunter Water, the EPA and others have put a lot of effort into it too.
The Williams will, however, be under review, but because of the area's geography and the relatively light population concentrations, the river is spared some of the stresses other rivers are subjected to.
We have in Australia 2 categories of rivers really, the slow-flowing inland western rivers and the faster-flowing eastern-flowing rivers. And generally speaking, the Darling and the like, those western-flowing ones are more highly degraded. It doesn't mean we can be complacent about the rivers in this area at all, but generally speaking they are in much better condition than the western ones.
The question of the Tilligra Dam, a blueprint for storage in the river's headwaters, now on the back burner until the year 2050, was raised in Parliament yesterday. Demand management and increased water recycling by industry may postpone the need for it indefinitely. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
The Weather Bureau got it right last night. Its predictions of severe thunderstorms for the northwest were borne out at about 7 p.m, the elements combining to create a dramatic spectacle from afar as the front sped through. It was more than a light show, though, for those in its path. Daylight revealed the full extent of the storm's fury in the town of Bingara, west of Inverell. 20 houses lost their roofs in the 10-minute whirlwind. There was extensive property damage and trees and debris were scattered everywhere. Phone and power lines were brought down. Hundreds of homes blacked out for hours.
No reports of injuries at all at the moment. I think everybody was very lucky considering how much damage is done and how much wind was about last night.
Answering scores of calls throughout the night, State Emergency Service volunteers and council workers still had plenty to do today, joining householders in assessing the damage and beginning the clean-up. Authorities are now warning residents across the region to make sure their homes and yards are secure. Last night's storm, a rude reminder of what the unsettled approach of summer can bring to the northwest. Ian Cameron, NBN News.
It's 30 years since the Tokau Agricultural College opened with just 15 students, but the rural educator refuses to live in the past. The opening of a new 15-room accommodation wing will help to serve the 10,000 people who use the college, including 150 full-time students.
It's set up to be totally flexible, that we can have for large groups of people who stay here as a group or individuals. Each room has got an ensuite, so we can have families, and also we can have groups of trainees who just stay for a few days for short courses.
And it's not only the facilities that have changed in the past 3 decades. The attitude to rural education has altered dramatically, with more young people opting for Tocal in preference to the traditional seat of rural learning, the family farm.
Well, it's an edge of being well trained, being able to communicate, work with other people, be up with today's technology, but also be prepared for tomorrow.
The combined state and federal government project has cemented Tocal's future, and the principal of the college says we should be just as positive about the whole farming industry.
I think the future is very strong. We shouldn't get tied down by the gloom and doom about agriculture. There's lots of good things happening. We're earning a lot of export dollars from agriculture, both in dairy, right through all the industries, and we tend to run them down at times and think that it's all finished, but it's only just started.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Lake Macquarie is the first area in Australia to trial the new scheme.
What we're trying to do is get some of the 14 million litres that's sold every year in Sydney and Newcastle back into the recycling area.
It's called the Peter 4-litre eater. When you have waste sump oil, it's a simple case of bringing it into participating service stations and dropping it off free of charge.
We've got the telephone book recycling system, Christmas card recycling, the pet bottles and the like. This is just seen as an extension to the total recycling program in Australia.
The oil is then picked up and taken back to a depot on the Central Coast and recycled for further use. The company hopes the system will go Australia-wide. Peter Ryan, NBN News. The young students were nearly bursting out of their skins with the official opening, waiting for that chance to jump in their new pool.
It's a tremendous occasion for the students of our school. They've waited many, many years, perhaps 20 years we've been on this project to try and have a hydrotherapy pool.
And with the formal business behind them, it was time to have fun. 24 local companies chipped in to build the pool, giving the children a real boost for their development.
It will strengthen their muscles. It gives them a freedom that they can't have in their wheelchairs. Many of the students are in wheelchairs and it just gives them complete freedom, and a lot of them are just completely independent in the water.
And there was an added bonus today with the Hunter Mariners stars Robbie McCormack and Noel Goldthorpe taking a dip as well. Outside, big Mal Meninga was swamped by supporters. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The youthful Breakers weren't intimidated by the defending champions, with 4 yellow cards awarded in the first 25 minutes. One of those was to Markovski, who after getting a warm greeting from Craig Carter, brought the best out of Newcastle's keeper. Carter's effort couldn't be matched at the other end, with Clayton Zane's innocuous strike almost as good as the celebration. The goal advantage evaporated early in the second term when Carter came off his line but failed to clear, allowing Joe Spiteri to score the equaliser. It set up a controversial finish, with substitute Glenn Sprott finding the back of the net only to be ruled offside, while Markovski produced a winner in extra time.
The goal that they got for the winner was scored 2 minutes overtime, and I wonder where 2 minutes of injury time came from, but I'm not going to bag the referees because you're not allowed to.
In the Youth League, the Knights overwhelmed the Breakers. Perth jumped to a 6-0 lead at the bottom of the fourth inning when heavy rain interrupted play. It appeared the Eagles' tag as the drought breakers had come back to haunt them, marring their historic first game at Maitland. But play finally resumed, with Perth tightening its hold on the game, scoring another 3 runs to lead 10-0 after the fifth. 2 7-innings matches will be held at Maitland tomorrow to complete the series. Some of the state's best water skiers are at Mayuna Bay on Lake Macquarie this weekend. The two-day event features the disciplines of jumps, tricks and slalom, with today's highlight being Dane Puxty's leap to break the Australian under-14s record. Other locals leading their events include Elise Coburn, Chris Coburn and Bronwyn Wing in the women's jump and slalom. And nearby at Araring, the under-14 and under-16 divisions were contesting the country softball championships. The tournament has attracted teams from the state's north, with one of today's highlights being the under-14s local derby between Lake Macquarie and Newcastle. Lake Macquarie taking the game 9-5.
It was the chopper's first attempt at such a marathon mission to transfer a critically ill patient suffering a drug overdose from Coloranabri in the northwest to a waiting ambulance at Tamworth. The Newcastle-based chopper left early yesterday and refuelled in Tamworth before heading for Coloranabri, 90 kilometres west of Moree. It was the longest trip to the northwest in the helicopter's 20-year history, although it had previously flown to Moree. Chief Crewman Graham Nickerson said it was a significant step in reaching more people in need.
Even though it's under contract to the Health Department in New South Wales, it means that the aircraft can be requested to fly anywhere in the state, provided we've got the fuel and it's safe to do so. As was proven yesterday, the helicopter was basically on the Queensland border.
The mission took 5 hours and included 2 refuelling stops. The patient is now in a stable condition in Tamworth Base Hospital. Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
The National Parks and Wildlife Service called a koala forum at Port Stephens, which attracted some of the state's foremost koala experts, conservation groups and local government representatives. It was a pooling of information and points of view concerned with preserving or profiting from a dwindling resource. The destruction of koala habitat has become a hot issue in Port Stephens.
One of the reasons that we've got the conference here at Port Stephens is that it is a bit of a microcosm of all the issues in terms of koala conservation.
There's lots of information being shared here, but the actual implementation of protection plans for koalas on the ground are not happening.
Just a short distance away, protesters are maintaining a vigil on a sand mining operation which was granted approval to move into a remnant of koala country. Conservationists are seeking a Land and Environment Court injunction to stop RZM clearing and mining the area.
The RZM licence was issued based on the best scientific advice that we could get and has put very, very clear restrictions on the way that the mining can be undertaken.
It's all very well to have this talk, but we must take action now. It's very clear. Community concern, scientific evidence and political concern also clearly says that we must protect these areas now.
Drew Lobb, NBN News. Professor Robert Clancy's book, The Mapping of Terra Australis, is a private passion put to print and a unique glimpse into how the shape of Australia emerged from as early as the 14th century. By that time, navigators and thinkers had drawn detailed outlines of the Northern Hemisphere and reasoned that a great Southland must exist to balance the globe. In the race to conquer the New World and its riches, the Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch, Italians, French and English laid claim to unveiling part of what was known as Terra Australis Incognita.
We were looking at one map where 4 ships went out and 3 came back, but I think that's what the older maps do. They incorporate a lot more than just geographic knowledge, or the way it was perceived at the time. It shows the fears people had, the hopes they had, the religious aspects, the economic aspects.
In the 1800s, explorers mapped Australia's interior, and rare drawings also feature in the book. While thorough in his research of maps and antiquity, the professor says he gets in a muddle finding his way through a street directory.
Well, that's absolutely. I'm hopeless with maps. I have to drive because I'm a lousy navigator.
The most amazing athletes on earth, the world famous Harlem Globetrotters! I came here tonight to hear the crowd go boom, shake, shake, shake the room. Boom, shake, shake, shake the room. Very high-rise Hardy! The most amazing athletes on earth, the world famous
Religion is something that should be taken on board voluntarily, not forced onto people according to new research.
Rigid dogmatic religion or guilt-driven religion is very destructive to family relationships.
Brad Strawn, a teacher and psychologist at the Avondale College, has released a study into how religion affects family life. With his co-author, he questioned 1,000 Seventh-day Adventists around Australia. While the study noted some negative effects, it also showed that when religion was fostered in a warm and considered environment, it could enhance family relationships.
Overall, you would have to say that that style of religion, if it's voluntary, promotes growth and independence and development.
Mrs. Sue Payton has become an icon amongst her art students. She's been a teacher of her favourite subject for almost 20 years and says there's nothing more rewarding than helping her young protégés realise their talents. It's her selfless and undivided attention that has her students holding her in high regard, and that's why they nominated her for the National Excellence in Teaching Award.
We decided we'd nominate her because she's always in the art room, you know, she stays back after school, gives the kids extra lessons. She's just always there for the kids, you know, they're her main concern.
She's put in 100% for every student that she's come across, and everyone does really well. So Mrs. Payton's just a great teacher all round, really.
Mrs. Payton gives the credit to her school, where she's worked for 12 years.
You don't achieve these sorts of awards or this sort of recognition unless you've got a wonderful team of teachers around you.
Her HSC students added one final touch to their tribute of their favourite teacher, creating an artwork she will always treasure.
To come from the students makes it doubly special.
Heather Stewart, NBN News.